There's this silent agreement that has pretty much governed education for generations. It's a bond of trust between parents and schools. But a new technology, AI, is shaking that foundation right down to its core. So today, we're going to dive into what happens when that trust breaks and how we can even begin to start rebuilding it.
It really all starts with this simple, really powerful symbol, a handshake, right? It's an act of trust, it's a sign of partnership. And in education, well, that same gesture has been happening invisibly for decades. Every single time a parent drops their kid off at school, they are, in effect, shaking hands.
And this is what we're calling the invisible handshake. It's this foundational belief that schools are going to keep our kids safe, that they'll be transparent, and that they'll give us a seat at the table when it comes to our children's future. It's the bedrock of the entire community. But something's changed. A new guest has just shown up in the classroom. Artificial intelligence. And for so many parents, this new presence is turning that trusted, open handshake into something else entirely. Something that feels kind of opaque, threatening, and honestly, like it's shutting them out. So how does this breakdown actually happen in the real world? Let's take a look at some stories where this invisible handshake didn't just bend, it completely shattered into a million pieces.
Our first story, it comes from Radnor High School in Pennsylvania. And let me tell you, it did not begin with some exciting new educational tool. No, it began with pure panic, with a series of frantic, late-night phone calls between parents.
Can you imagine? Classmates had used AI to create these deeply disturbing, explicit images of other students. But the core issue here, the thing that really sent parents over the edge, wasn't just the misuse of tech by a few kids. The real fury was aimed at the school's total silence. When parents demanded answers, they just found a void. No policy, no guidance, no plan whatsoever. And this leads to what we're calling the Radnor Pattern. It's this totally reactive approach where schools only bother to create a policy after a crisis has already blown up. And when parents are the last to know that a life-changing technology is in their kids' world, well, trust is just destroyed.
Okay, let's look at another example. In New York City, the school system rolled out its big AI roadmap, and it was all about administrative efficiency. To them, it was about optimizing workflows. But from the parents' perspective, the message they heard was, "My child is being turned into a data point." The school saw an internal IT tool. Parents saw a new, completely unvetted teammate for their child. The disconnect here is just huge.
And this really gets to the crucial question, doesn't it? Is AI just another tool, like a calculator or a smartboard? Or is it something more, a collaborator that fundamentally changes how a child learns, how they think, and maybe even how they understand what's true? Because how you answer that question changes everything.
Now, in response to all this growing anxiety, a lot of schools have turned to what seems like a totally logical solution: AI literacy. The idea is, hey, if we just explain the technology, the fear will go away. But here's the thing, it's a trap. Yeah, the standard playbook looks something like this. First, teach the kids the tech. Step 2, teach the parents about the ethics. And then step 3, poof, trust is magically built. It sounds reasonable, but it's missing the single most important ingredient in the entire equation. And that's the trap. Look, it's not that literacy is bad. Of course we need to understand these tools. The problem is believing that literacy alone is the answer. Because here's the hard truth. You cannot code your way out of a trust deficit. Knowing how an AI detector works doesn't really help you when your child is falsely accused of cheating by one. Trust isn't built on a shared vocabulary list. It's built on shared values and actual relationships. But hey, this isn't a story without hope. A new model is starting to emerge from schools that are actually getting it right. They're building something called a visible partnership. They are daring to have the hard conversations first, before things go wrong. Let's just compare the two approaches for a second. The old way? That's creating policy behind closed doors and then just announcing it in a PDF attached to an email. The new way? That's holding AI town halls before any software is even purchased. It's about exploring this new world together and admitting that you don't have all the answers.
This quote from a teacher, this just perfectly captures the spirit of what visible AI is all about. Instead of hiding the technology or pretending it's perfect, they bring it right out into the open. By being vulnerable enough to question the AI right there in front of the class, a teacher builds way more trust and credibility than any 50-page handbook ever could.
So this brings us all the way back to our central idea. If we really want AI to succeed in our schools, we have to repair and rebuild that handshake. But this time it has to be in a new, much more transparent way.
We have to remember that the solution here is not technological. It is not about finding the perfect app or the most advanced algorithm. The bridge that connects parents and educators, well, it's not built from silicon chips or fiber optic cables.
It's made of conversation. It's built in those school board meetings, in parent-teacher conferences, and yeah, around the dinner table. Open, honest, and sometimes, frankly, difficult dialogue is the only real path forward.
Ultimately, the technology might be complex, but the stakes here are entirely human. So as AI becomes this permanent part of our children's lives, we all have to ask ourselves a very simple question. When it comes to their education, who exactly are we shaking hands with?